Have you ever felt this way? You're already working so hard, but when you hit a bottleneck, your first instinct is to push even harder. The result? You sink deeper and deeper, struggling to break free from that trap. You want to lose weight, so you eat less and less, only to overeat from hunger. You're anxious, so you work longer and longer, only to make more mistakes and become even more anxious. Do you see it now? Sometimes raw force alone cannot break through. This is top-tier logic. I'm Mojo. We see through the logic of money, because wealth is the only chip, to real freedom in this brutal world. Today we're talking about a skill that lets you turn things around even in impossible situations. Why do so many people suffer more the harder they work when facing a bottleneck? Because they only know how to exhaust themselves at the same level. They don't know how to shift their thinking, to start over. Today, I'm going to break down the breakthrough logic of top performers for you in complete detail. First point, when you hit a difficult situation, you need to upgrade from changing your state. Ordinary people hitting a bottleneck respond by doubling down through harsher diets, longer work hours, trying to solve the problem by changing their state. But this is usually futile. The great physicist Einstein said something profound. A problem that exists at a certain level of thinking is very hard to solve at that same level of thinking. We need a higher level of thought to break through. What is breaking through? Breaking through means shattering your current situation so you can see a much larger picture. You don't escape anxiety by mindlessly overworking, but by switching to a planned, fulfilling mode of work. You don't truly lose weight by blindly eating less, but by changing your metabolism so energy burned exceeds energy consumed. Poor people keep bashing their heads against the same walls inside their frames, but rich people know how to jump outside the frame and find an entirely new model. So how do you find a new model? Second point, you must learn to strike at the root problem. When people hit a bottleneck, they can't break through no matter how hard they try because they're trapped in surface symptoms. They haven't found the root problem, the deepest source of the issue. I have a copywriter friend who writes all day, yet never seems to finish. Once I asked him, "Why are you always busier than everyone else?" He said, "Because my boss is never satisfied. He asks me to revise every piece 10 times or more." I was puzzled. Why don't you talk to your boss first, figure out exactly what he wants, think it through, and then start writing? He answered wearily, "There's no time for that. There's so much to do. By the time I had that conversation, I could write the whole piece." You see, this is textbook. When facing a problem, not looking for the root cause, just treating the symptoms. The result? One meaningless round of labor after another, with no thought, no purpose. It drains him completely and kills his passion for work. Remember, thinking is the foundation of all action. Acting without thinking will only push everything into chaos. Once you find the root problem, third point, this is the breakthrough tool that will transform your life. First principles. This is the thinking method that tech visionary Musk champions relentlessly. What are first principles? Simply put, it means looking at the world from physics, breaking something down to its smallest, most basic components, then rebuilding from that bedrock foundation up. It's like peeling an onion, layer by layer, until you see the core truth. When Musk was early in manufacturing Tesla batteries, every battery manufacturer told him, "Battery costs are as low as they can go. That's the price point we've had for years." If Musk had relied on past experience, he'd have accepted that reality. But he chose first principles. He listed out every raw material needed to make a battery: carbon, nickel, aluminum, everything. Then he wrote down the market price of each material. And he was startled to discover, if he sourced and produced these base materials himself, starting from the ground up, battery costs could become several times cheaper. Poor people hitting a bottleneck always look at how others do it, trapped in existing frameworks. But masters know how to break the rules, reduce problems to their raw facts, and rebuild solutions from the ground up. This is the power of outmatching from a higher dimension. But here's the thing. Once you see the truth and find a new solution, you often face the hardest step of all. Fourth point, do you have the courage to start over? Many people facing a bottleneck know the direction is wrong, but because they can't let go of the sunk costs they've already invested. But true masters understand, if you don't tear down that faulty foundation, you'll never build a magnificent castle. Wu Jun, a former Google researcher and renowned scholar, when he wrote A Brief History of Technology, didn't rush to work day and night. He spent enormous amounts of time thinking deeply about one root question. Why am I writing this book? He found that existing histories of technology were either painfully obscure or too narrowly categorized. So he decided to use energy and information as two threads to weave together the entire history. During the writing process, he would sit at his desk for hours alone, wrestling with his thoughts, constantly tearing up what he'd written, constantly rebuilding his structure, until every foundation question was crystal clear. It was precisely this courage to start over that made this book a bestseller the moment it was published. Poor people fear wasting their effort, so they keep compromising, doing patchwork. But rich people know that to achieve an extraordinary result, tearing down what's in front of you isn't a loss. It's the essential path to rebuilding your system. Finally, the fifth point, the most expansive objective principle in breakthrough thinking. Higher dimensional perspective. There's a saying that captures it perfectly. A problem can often not be solved at the level on which it was created. So many people stay trapped and never break free because they're always seeing from the inside player perspective. They fight on the same flat plane as their competitors, fighting for scraps of resources. But true masters know how to step outside this circle, to position themselves on a higher dimension, where they can see the whole board. When you lift your viewpoint from the first floor to the 30th floor, everything you see changes. Your mental boundaries expand instantly. You realize that those problems, which seemed unsolvable at lower levels, from a higher vantage point, are just tiny flaws in the system's operation. Everything I mentioned before, switching modes, striking at the root, first principles, starting over, at their core, they're all helping you do the same thing. They're lifting you from inside the problem. When you stand high enough, you're no longer a piece trapped in the game, but the player who can see the whole board and rearrange it whenever you want. Looking back at this, take a moment to examine the predicament you're facing right now. Aren't you also stuck in what seems like an impossible situation, doing the same things over and over, hoping for a different miracle? Remember, the world will never generously reward you for simply. When you hit a bottleneck, doubling down is often the cheapest effort of all. Starting today, learn to step outside your current state, find the core of the problem, use first principles to peel back the layers to the bottom, and summon the courage to start completely fresh. When you truly master breakthrough thinking, when you understand how to reset your life from a higher dimension, you'll discover those walls that once blocked you were just stepping stones to higher levels. If this episode moved you, please subscribe to Top Tier Logic, give it a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell. We'll continue exploring the underlying logic of wealth. I'm Mojo. See you next time.